Hey, welcome in to the Fun Astrology Podcast. It's Hump Day, Wednesday, March 25th. And I tell you what, it's like a newsman without any news. This chart today is about like yesterday. We have not had any movement of anything. The moon is still in Aries. I guess the only thing that would be that we could consider moving is the moon moved off of the new moon yesterday morning, but it's still in Aries. Moves into Taurus tomorrow, Thursday, 9:36 a.m. And that will be an interesting transition of signs because right away it will conjunct Uranus in Taurus. So we'll see about that. You know, another one we haven't talked about for a while, for obvious reasons, is Venus in Taurus. And, you know, this is one of those where you think, well, you just got to take your licks, because when Venus moved into Taurus, I thought, wow, let's do some money manifesting, March Madness. Well, yeah, wrong direction. And isn't that interesting that the energy being there, and this is the duality of the chart, you know, the energy was there. And look, some people, and I'm planning on being one of these, will benefit more from this situation. Because for me, since I work at home anyway and all of my stuff is digital, it just opens up a myriad of opportunities. So I think you can play this both ways. This is what we talk about over on the Subconscious Mind Mastery podcast. And if you'd like to check in over there, there are some of the recent stuff. I'm going to be focusing on how to reframe all of this from a subconscious perspective. So if you would like to jump in on that podcast, would love to have you over there. But Venus moving through becomes this realm of intentions. And I think for those of you who played the game and set some March Madness, Venus, money intentions, don't count. The story is not over yet. This ball game has multiple innings. And you know what? We've got another about 10 days or so of Venus in Taurus. Use them to create that money paradigm. You know, think of it like this. If you could wave a magic wand, and there's so many people are hurting right now, and I get it. But let's wave a magic wand. Let's wave a mystical, magical wand over all of this and say, how would you like to come out on the other side? And let's start to focus there. And here's a thought on that end. We don't know where this is headed, right? And you could go down all the bad gloom and doom roads you want. Why? Because if this is destined to go down that kind of road or some kind of change, why would you not create what you want on the other side of it? Because remember, this is so important. At the end of the journey, historically, when Saturn and Pluto had conjuncted in the past, remember what we said. The end result is always infinitely and far more beautiful than what was before. And that's where you need to start focusing your eye. And we don't know what that looks like yet. But let's go with history. Let's go with what has come before us. And let's start thinking about the Renaissance that followed the Dark Ages. So what kind of Renaissance experiences or awakenings or revelations or magic do you want in your life? Because just as we used history to identify what this could be, we're using history to create the magic that's going to come from this. And I know that's hard to see when the tunnel is dark. One other point I wanted to make today is, as you think about, like yesterday, I'm doing as much observing of this chart as you are, and we're learning together. We've not been in these waters before. And I think to some degree you kind of have to throw the typical interpretations of astrology not out, but you have to look beyond them. Like yesterday, new moon. Okay, think about yesterday. We had a new moon in Aries. All right, how would you normally frame that up? Well, the new moon, that's the moon conjunct the sun. That's a time of creating. It's a time of sparking. In Aries, aggressive energy ruled by Mars, square to the nodes of the moon, right at the crest of the moon wobble. Like we talked about yesterday with a tense aspect to Uranus, a favorable aspect to Saturn. What happened? Stock market went up precipitously. So that's where the typical interpretations that you might look at didn't hold. So here's my observation. Maybe we're in a bigger pattern and we have to zoom back away from this chart a little bit and think more macro than micro. Because whatever this energy is that is causing this shuddering, this shaking of the foundation of the earth, is an energy that's bigger than so-and-so being sextile or trine to so-and-so. Does that make sense? You see where I'm going with this? So maybe we have to focus on the bigger picture more and look at the bigger picture paradigms. I did see two interesting headlines yesterday. I sent these to Majana in an email. She doesn't like too many details, and I'm not reading the details now, but I am reading the headlines. I do feel on staying abreast, and of course I am the producer of a radio show on this topic, so you got to do your digging. But here were the two headlines that came up, and I said, okay, here is Saturn in Aquarius, and the headline said, countries are starting to hoard food, threatening global trade. It's not just grocery shoppers who are hoarding pantry staples. Some governments are moving to secure domestic food supplies during the coronavirus pandemic. Interesting. Saturn in Aquarius. When Saturn moved into 29 degrees Capricorn, and I said, let's start looking and watching because this might show us what Saturn in Aquarius looks like. And I got to say, Saturn in Aquarius has been a sumbitch so far, hasn't it? All right, here's the other headline. When I sent this to Majana, I said Uranus and Taurus, and this was from the Wall Street Journal. Headline, Fed digital dollars are part of debate over coronavirus stimulus. The article basically was talking about that the government doesn't have the ability to get money into the public hands fast enough, so they wanted to create digital dollars and distribute faster. Whenever you see money-related, systemic money-related articles or news, think about Uranus and Taurus. It's a change in the monetary system. So there you go. These are big fundamental shifts, and that's where I think that basically we are looking at more macro than micro right now. So it might behoove us. I do think we still have to keep our eye on things. And the one thing that we will also keep our eye on is tomorrow Mars will be exactly halfway in between Pluto and Saturn. So it conjuncts Saturn on March 31st. That's going to be interesting because, like I said, Saturn in Aquarius has been a cranky one so far. All right, so that's it for today. Just a couple of observations. And we may have to zoom back and watch the bigger picture. But we'll pick it apart and then we'll observe. I think that's the best thing for us to do right now. We're not so much saying this or that is going to happen because we typically would interpret it that way. I think we have to broaden out. It's not what it used to be. The energy interpretation is not what it used to be. Boy, these are interesting times, aren't they? Have a good hump day. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.